Genesis 1:26. Then God said, let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. They will rule the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, the livestock, and all the earth, and creatures that crawl upon the earth. I want to start with explaining the red part of the verse. What is the image? Is it about the outward appearance? Something like two arms, two legs, a head, a nose, two eyes, fingers. Is it that we are made in God's image in that way? Well, I could be in a limited form because, the problem with this view is that, well, there are 7 billion people. Just look around. Everybody looks different. You got long people, short people, old people, young people. You got people with a dark skin, people with a light skin, and every skin in between. You got long hair, short hair, blue eyes, green eyes, brown eyes. So, if there is a resemblance with God, it must be limited. So, because there are 7 billion variations and they cannot be all 100% like God. Perhaps image is about the character of God, like love, hate, holiness, or even intelligence. Well, again, we bump into the same problem. There are 7 billion people, all have a different character, and none of them has loving as God, and none of them have the same intelligence of God. Not even people among themselves have exactly the same level of love or exactly the same level of intelligence. So if it's about character, again, it's a limited resemblance. Another thing we could resemble him in or be in his image is doing as he does. Like, let's say, creation. Yes, we create, we created houses, cars, smartphones. We do create movies and we create all sort of things, but not the same as God. For example, we cannot create a universe or a planet or time or life. So again, maybe there is some sort of resemblance in creation, but it's so far different that it can't hardly be compared. And if we can compare, we must again say, if there is a resemblance, it's a very, well, not strict resemblance, it's far off resemblance. It's more like a vague look-alike. The next one is spiritual things. And I personally think that is the main meaning of image. Because, well, the Bible is a book about spiritual things. Sometimes they are on the surface, sometimes they are a little bit deeper, but almost always there is something spiritual going on. And well, I really think that this verse is about a spiritual thing and it's of a huge importance. And I think it will play out over time, since creation all the way until God's kingdom starts, until Jesus arrives for the second time. So it's that spiritual thing, that image plays out from the very beginning of the Bible to the very end of the Bible. And of course, we messed up big time. While creation of mankind took place in that verse of Genesis 1:26, it was written down about 2666 years later by Moses during the Exodus. In that time there were many people, many nations, many languages, many kings, many customs, and many cultures. And as strange as it may sound, all of them had images, especially kings had images. A more modern, understandable word would be representative or ambassador. Ambassador is actually a word that is found in the New Testament. 2 Corinthians 5:20. Therefore we are ambassadors for Christ, certain that God is appealing to us. We plead on Christ's behalf, be reconciled to God. If we look up the word ambassador in a dictionary, we find an important official who represents his or her government in a foreign country, someone who represents a particular sport, business, etc., because they behave in a way that people admire. What would be the task of an ambassador of Christ? Spreading the word and commands of the King, meaning spreading the gospel. I think at time in the future it also means exercising some kind of authority in his name, because in verse Revelation 5:10 we read, you made them a kingdom of priests, and they will reign on the earth. And that reigning is the authority we found in Genesis 1:26. So now just let's assume that the Genesis 1:26, the image, is about we being ambassadors of God. And by the looks of it, that was what Adam was created. But very early on, Adam messed up. He sinned, the fall, and then everything, well, went wrong. And the ambassadorship was broken at best, and likely even ceased for a while. The next key is found in Revelation 1 verse 6. And he has made us kings and priests to God and his Father. To him be glory and dominion forever and ever. Well, we are kings, and kings rule. So that means there's authority. And we find that authority in Genesis 1:26. They will rule. Okay, it was over fish and birds, and of course we are in Revelation talking about ruling over humans. But just let's say that Genesis 1:26 could be a little bit like symbolic language. We also see the word priest in the Revelation verse, which, well, links to the gospel I mentioned. And again we see in Genesis 1:26 the word rule, and in some translations you will find it translated as have dominion, and that word dominion you find in Revelation 1 verse 6. The verse is not shown here, but Revelation 1:5 we read, Jesus the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. Think about what that means. It's impossible for Jesus to be a King of Kings if no kings serve under him. It's impossible for Jesus to be a Lord of Lords if no lords serve under him. It's impossible for Jesus to be a high priest if no lower priests serve under him. So again we see here proof that mankind is destined to rule. And we see, well, a kingship, okay, that could be just like secular ruling, so to speak, but that high priest, that's just a spiritual job, a religious job. And that links nicely back to what I said about image. That can be all sort of things, and I said even that it's about spreading the gospel. And I think this verse of Revelation 1:5 just proves that, because if we serve under Jesus, then it must be about the gospel, because Christ came to earth to give us the gospel. Then he left the earth and we were supposed to spread the gospel. We did so, but again, things did not go as well as it should go. But in the end, Christ will return and he will give direct rulership, direct commandment of all those small kings, small lords, small priests, and they serve under him. And I think we can agree that will be serving a gospel-like thing, like how do we behave and teachings and that sort of things. Okay, back to where you started. Let us make man in our image. In, a very small, short English word. But there is a lot to say about this word, so I will give you a few examples. I put the pencil in my bag. In is about a location. I broke the pencil in pieces. In is about a result. I wrote a letter in pencil. In is about how I write. The Hebrew word the English word was translated from also can be used for many things. And there's one more example of how that word is used, a very relevant example. I work in real estate. Here in means that I work as a seller of houses. I work in education. Here the word means I work as a teacher. I work in healthcare. Here it means I work as a doctor or a nurse. The word in was originally intended to have this meaning of a job, the job of ambassador. Now let's use that information we gathered to retranslate the verse. Genesis 1:26. Then God said, let us make man as our ambassador. A more average way translation would be, then God said, let make man to spread the gospel. That's my conclusion, what that verse actually means. There's one more thing I want to say about all of this, and I mentioned it several times in the beginning. The wording used in Genesis, the Hebrew wording, has multiple meanings, and it has also the meaning of a similarity, an imagination, which is correct to our interpretation, but it also has the meaning of a shadow, an imperfect image. And that's exactly what I told you at the beginning. All those likenesses in appearance, in actions, and whatever that image does, it's never perfect. It's just a, a distant resemblance of the original ones in heaven. Or if the, if we keep it simple, if image is about spreading the gospel, it's just a small image of how Christ would spread the gospel. It's the same task as Christ had, but it is done in an inferior form. But nevertheless, the meaning of the verse is that we spread the gospel, and at a certain point in time we will have dominion, rulership in doing so, when we serve directly under the King Jesus Christ, when he establishes his 1,000-year kingdom here on earth. Thank you for listening.